Wouldn't that be nice if we could actually live that in every moment? And that's really what we're here. What Unity exists as is a place, a space of practice, practical tools to enable us to remember and be able to align with the oneness that is actually the truth of life. And, we come back to Einstein's famous question, do you believe that the universe is a friendly or an unfriendly place? And you get to choose. Now, I don't know about you, but when I thought the universe was an unfriendly place, my life was an unfriendly place. So my life has been a journey to be able to explore what this other idea about what life could be is all about. And what I have personally discovered is that it has enabled me to actually know joy in the face of some really tough circumstances. To be able to hold love, even as I look at what's happening in the world right now, that breaks my heart open again and again and again. The news is so hard, yes? It's just so hard. And so how do we show up in that? I don't know about you, but when I believed that the world was an unfriendly place, I couldn't show up in the world. I couldn't. I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have anything that I could access. It didn't have anything that was going to source me and renew me. I was just tired all the time. And so what we're being invited into through Unity's teaching is this place, this space where we get to sort of stand in something other than our ego, other than what's just right in front of us. And I know, believe me, what's right in front of us can be so alive and so big. And so it really does ask us to practice something, so that we can show up, even in the midst of the big stuff, with a place and a space that is anchored in something other than pain, something other than suffering. What do they say? Pain is, you can expect pain, but suffering is optional, right? So we can be present with pain. That's what our teaching gives us. But we do not have to suffer. Like that suffering piece is what we're looking to heal into something else for. So we've been looking at Discover Your Divinity. Linda and I wrote this book because we really felt that there was just a lack of clarity around one of Unity's foundational teachings, which is affirmative prayer. And so that's what motivated us to write the book. And we started off focusing on how to support prayer chaplains and people who pray with other people. But we quickly realized that in order to help people be able to pray with other people, that first we needed to break down what it meant to have your own personal prayer practice, that you can't separate those out. Because that's what you're bringing when you pray with somebody else. As Kathleen was sharing, you are holding up a mirror to somebody else's divinity. But if you're not clear about that, then your mirror that you're holding up is cloudy. And so when we step into our personal prayer practice, what we're doing is cleaning our own mirror. Does that make any sense? So we've talked about affirmative prayer as aligning with our true nature and consciously living from our divinity. That's like in a nutshell. That's what we're trying to do. We're remembering to remember. We're saying, okay, I am not just this humanness. I am something that is divinely human. We don't leave our humanness at the door. We don't have to ignore it. But we want to be in a larger container than just what our five senses are telling us. So we had the heart of affirmative prayer, which we've been talking about for the past 3 weeks. So we're in week 4 of the book study. So if some of what I'm saying is like, oh, wow, I want to know more about that, just know that the previous talks are on our YouTube channel. So the heart of affirmative prayer, God is, I am, therefore I can. Can we all say that together? And that's really, right, we're not expecting some magical being to run interference in our life. That is not what Unity believes. We believe that oneness means that we are it. And so what are we capable of when we remember that we are it? So affirmative prayer is changing our own consciousness. That's what it's changing. So in chapter 7, which is what we're up to, we also get to see what brackets the heart of affirmative prayer, right? And so the flow of affirmative prayer has 5 movements. I open to a new understanding. I recognize God is. I integrate I am. I realize, therefore I can. And then I appreciate the shift in my own consciousness. Can you feel how that sort of flows together? So Linda and I have always envisioned this as a spiral. I don't know about you, but normally when I come into the prayer space, it's because I've got some tightness in my heart. I've got something that feels small and tight. And so the prayer flow is designed to open us up into the infinite potential that is actually who we truly are. When praying affirmatively, we are looking for a spiritual antidote to the condition. That is what we will ultimately place our attention upon, the spiritual antidote that will shift our consciousness. Everybody feeling that? Right? We're shifting our focus. So the reading that we did in the Lent booklet, which are free and they're in the backs of all the chairs, so please take one home, take them and share them with anybody. What I wrote in that, in the reading that Debbie did so beautifully, is this idea that we have to shift our focus, not on what we don't want, which is what we focus on so much of the time, what we don't want, but to shift our focus to the spiritual antidote, this spiritual underpinning that is going to allow us to experience life in a different way. Pretending a condition doesn't exist is what we call a spiritual bypass. This is a big thing in our community. I hear people say it all the time. Oh no, I'm not gonna say something because that'll give it more strength, or that'll give it more power in my life, or like I'll make it show up if I speak it into the world. I need everybody to know that if we are ignoring what is, we are not in a place where we can heal anything. It's not about pretending that everything is hunky-dory. I've talked about that, right? You go into a New Thought community and you say, how you doing? And somebody says, oh, it's all good. And we know that what that means is their life has gone to hell. Right? It's like this code, because we're not actually going to say, it's been really challenging, because we don't do that in Unity. We're the positive teaching. We're all about staying, affirming the goodness, right? Whew, everyone take a breath with me. We're like rewriting that narrative here. Because we have to allow ourselves to be aware with what's actually happening. If our heart is breaking because of what we're seeing happening in the world, it's not about pretending that our heart isn't breaking. It's about what's the spiritual antidote to my broken heart? How do I get to show up in the world now? Because my heart is broken, not in spite of it. Is everyone with me here? So the affirmative prayer process is what allows us to powerfully meet any sense of pain or loss or fear or doubt with truth. I always say, whatever's coming up for you, bring it to affirmative prayer. I don't believe in the power of affirmative prayer. Bring that to affirmative prayer. Right? There is nothing that you can't bring into that prayer field. That's the uniqueness of what we teach and what we know. So what helps us is to understand that usually there is some sort of condition that we are trying to navigate, that we're either struggling with, and it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. I mean, I would say probably 85% of the prayer requests that I get from people are about something that they're really struggling with. But then there's the other 15%, which is that, I'm so happy, I want more gratitude. Right? It's not always, you don't just have to bring the prayer field to when things are going sideways. The prayer field is there to support you in every area of your life, to just allow you to experience even more of something. But let's say my brother and I are not speaking, and what's actually alive in me is the fear that I have lost him forever. Right? That rent in our relationship is so deep that I'm never going to be able to speak to him again. Does that, it's not necessarily true. Can you feel that? But that's my fear. That's what's living in me. And it's creating a spiral of anxiety and worry. So I get to say, okay, what do I want the purpose of this prayer to be? What's the spiritual antidote? And what comes to my mind is love, right? Love is a great antidote to feeling as if your relationship is sundered. And so the purpose would be to align myself, not my brother and I relationship is all love, because that's just very vague. But I am going to align myself with the harmonizing power of love and a deeper awareness of oneness with my brother. Does that mean that I'm going to show up differently? It has to, right? If I'm the harmonizing power of love, it means that I'm going to interact with wherever he is. I don't need to change him. And we're going to get to this in a minute. Affirmative prayer isn't about controlling or dictating, right, what's going to happen out there. It is about shifting our consciousness so that no matter what is happening out there, we have resources and capacities to be able to access within ourselves. A single condition might yield several different purposes, right? So the purpose of the prayer is focused on what would be useful for you right now. We talked about this and we're going to highlight it again, but it's all about what would be useful to you. And that can really vary depending on what you need. So let's look at let's look at this condition. I feel tired and run down. I have no energy. Can anybody relate to that? Tired, I'm run down, I have no energy. So I just put 3 here. There's even more than this, right? The purpose of my prayer could be to align with the inexhaustible resources that I am of zeal and enthusiasm. Or my purpose could be to align with wisdom and open to discerning what is truly mine to do. Or I could align myself with strength, and I can unlock the hidden reservoirs of determination and steadfastness that I have. Can you feel how there's really no wrong answer? There's just what's going to be useful for you right now. One person might want strength in that moment. Another person might be like, I'm run down and tired and I have no energy because I don't know how to say no to people. So the second purpose might actually be what's going to align with them, right? Remember I said that when we're focused on divine qualities and the 12 powers, they're all taking us to the same place. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. They're all going to take you to the same space of oneness. But some of them are going to feel more aligned, more useful to you right now. The purpose of affirmative prayer is to align with whatever divine principle will meet, heal, and transform a false sense of separation. We focus the purpose of the prayer on what we want to realize and experience. It's really huge, this idea that we're shifting our focus away from what we don't want to what we want. And that asks something of us, because I don't know about you, but I get stuck in my narrative sometime, right? I'm so sure of something. I'm so sure that this is the way it is. And all I'm doing in that moment for my human self is shutting myself off from infinite potential. I don't know why we do that, but we do over and over and over again. So this is the other thing too. I really want to, I remember talking to somebody once about New Thought, and they were like, oh yeah, you're the people who think that God is a vending machine. And you sort of put something in and you pull a lever and it pops out for you, right? And I was like, wow. But I do know people who use our principles that way, but I'm going to invite us into a deeper understanding of our principles. This is from Myrtle Fillmore. This is back when Silent Unity didn't have phones or anything else, and they would write to people, right? Letters were how they were answering the prayer requests. And what they say is, we do not pray for people to receive the multitude of things for which they ask. Neither do we pray for specific results in personal matters. For example, we do not pray that a certain person may be influenced to buy a piece of property, or that one may obtain a particular position that he may have in mind. Nor do we pray that anyone may fall in love with, or become engaged to, or married to another. The real need for each one is for wisdom, understanding, and good judgment. And it is for these that we pray. Can you feel the difference? We are not praying to get something. That is antithetical to what we believe. We believe in one power and one presence. What we are praying, what our prayer is for, is to unlock the capacity that we have already for something that we just forgot. We forgot we had the determination. We forgot we had the judgment. We're not trusting our wisdom. We're not trusting abundance, yeah? And so that is where affirmative prayer is actually operating. Not to get us stuff, but so that we can grow in our spiritual capacity, so that we can become more of who we actually are. Eric Butterworth put it this way. He said, "The important need is not to try to affect some change in other people or circumstances, but to make some changes in your thoughts and feelings about them. Don't try to set them right, but rather to see them rightly. And to see them rightly, you must get rid of some narrow frames of reference and get out of the feeling of concern." This is what we're up against, right? This is the heart of it, right? To see them rightly, whatever them is. So them could be a situation, it could be a circumstance, whatever them is to you, not to make them right, to fix them, but to actually align ourselves in a new way. So that you can get rid of this narrowness, this limited understanding of something. And I love this, what he says, get out of the feeling of concern. Take a minute and think about who you'd be if you weren't living from the feeling of concern. Whew. I mean, that just makes me kind of go woozy, right? Like, oh, what if I could let all that go? How would I show up in the world if I wasn't always so concerned? So this is why the first movement in the prayer flow is so important. Because if we're not willing to open into a new understanding, if we're not willing to open up in some way, then our prayer is not going to be effective. Can you feel that? Because the prayer is impacting our own consciousness. So if we are actually stepping into the prayer field and we're thinking that at the end of the prayer field, I'm going to be exactly the same, but everybody else is going to be different, then nothing changes. Nothing shifts. So I open would be, and I love this expression, embrace your adjacent possible. So it's actually a scientist came up with this because he said that the world was evolving so quickly that it was too fast for some of us. And so you had inventions coming out where he was talking about the difference between HTML and another form of code for computers. And HTML invited the coders who existed at that time to take a half a step up in the difference between what they were doing and what HTML was. And there was a better coding system, cleaner, sweeter, neater, the whole 9 yards, easier to use. But it required people to take 5 steps up. Never took off. Because it wasn't part of people's adjacent possible. So adjacent possible means that it has to be something that you can kind of envision. So the example I like to use is if your bank account is empty, right? And there are some people in New Thought who will say, oh, just say to yourself, I am a millionaire. Is that part of your adjacent possible? It doesn't feel realistic to me, so it's not actionable. So all you need to open into is what one little step forward might be. You don't have to open into, 5, 6, 7 steps down the road. You just need to open into what's next. Because remember, we're a process. We are the creative process. So we're going to keep expanding into our adjacent possible, and keep expanding into our adjacent possible, and keep expanding, right? And eventually we're going to find ourselves, I can look back and be like, wow, I never would have imagined my life now then, because back then it wasn't part of my adjacent possible. Yeah? But this is where I am right now. It's an invitation to deepen into the truth of who you are. It's an invitation to be curious. What else is possible? Right? What else is out there that I'm not paying attention to? It's really about being willing, just being willing to release what you think you know, to release all of the stuff that is actually keeping you confined in the world that you are suffering within. Affirmative prayer is changing who? Me, right? Yep, that's it. So are you willing to shift your attention away from the concern to God, to oneness? That's really the question. Are you willing? You don't even necessarily have to be able to do it. You just have to be willing. You have to be willing to shift your focus, right? From the concern to the God idea. And what we want to invite ourselves into is that the words that we're using in the prayer flow are rising from a state of consciousness. We're not talking about opening or recognizing or integrating or realizing. We are speaking from an experience of them. Can you feel the difference? Unity is very much about present moment, right here, right now, in this time. Not in the future, but right now. What is, and standing in that. And the only way to do that is to allow it to be you. So there's a difference when we're talking about recognition as opposed to recognizing. So I have some examples here of what an I open statement could look like. These are just examples, right? But it's to show you how varied they can be. There are no rules. What would it mean for you to open? What would help you understand how to facilitate the willingness to discover something in the realization that you've never realized before? I am in a state of expectancy, ready for my good. I open to what I don't know but long to know, the deepest wisdom that I am. In this moment, I quiet my mind, open my heart, and choose to allow myself the possibility of a new perspective, one that is grounded in spiritual principle and in my infinite potential. That was mine, because I like to talk, right? So there's lots of differences. Some of them can be longer, some of them can be shorter. There's no rule. It's just what is alive within you, right? What is alive within you? So we can also use negations, because sometimes it's really hard to open. So the negations are in italics here, right? In this moment, I quiet my mind and open my heart. I release what has come before and what I think I know. I center in this present moment, quieting my concern and worry. I allow myself the possibility of a new perspective, one that is grounded in spiritual principle and my infinite potential. Because sometimes we have to say, nope, this has no power. My concern and worry has no power in this moment. This is not, I am stepping into something new. I am opening into something else. And then from there, can you feel that? Like once we're open, it's like, oh, here we go. And it really is like there's momentum that gets built up in the prayer flow. So, okay, I'm opening up right now, and now I'm going to recognize God in some way. I'm going to recognize that God is, and I'm going to do it in a way that is about what's useful right now. Because God is infinite and all, I am going to isolate one aspect of the divine that will support me in this condition that I'm trying to shift my attention around. And so we've talked about this again. Look at talks 1, 2, and 3. We got the prime principle, which is oneness. So that means there's no opposites to it. There is no devil. There is no antichrist, right? There is nothing that's in opposition, because then it wouldn't be oneness. It would be duality. So we have oneness, and from that we have omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence, everywhere, pervasive. Even you. You are not an exception to the oneness. All those times that we think we're an exception, but we're not. And goodness, how Linda and I are inviting the definition of goodness is, there is no opposite. It's a reinforcement of this idea of oneness. And then from that, we have our 12 powers, we have our divine qualities, we have wholeness, perfection, abundance, grace, principle. Remember, there are no opposites to these. These are divine ideas. And, if you're like, wow, that's a lot, pick one power. Pick one power and focus on it for a month and see what happens. Just focus on strength. Focus on love, focus on, power, your capacity to speak truth, to voice something into this world. Do we need voices that are speaking truth into this world? Yes, we do. And the question you just keep coming back to, what would be useful right now? What's the antidote? What's the spiritual antidote for my dis-ease? What is the spiritual antidote for what I'm carrying on my heart? And from there, we go to I am. We're integrating that divine quality. So we're standing in our spiritual authority. We are being a divine human. We're embracing the fact that there is truly only one, and that means we are not separate. And so if we're not separate, as Charles Fillmore says, remember that the object of all treatment, which used to be one of the terms they used for affirmative prayer, because they felt like you were medically treating your false beliefs. So they used to call it treatment, spiritual mind treatment. So affirmative prayer is to raise the mind to the Christ consciousness through which all true healing is accomplished. So this piece of saying, yes, I am, is huge. And I've been talking to some people, and I know it feels like, but I'm not God. I can't be all that God is. No. Hello? No. We're not saying that you are the allness that God is, but we are saying that you can access at any moment one aspect that God is. That you have the capacity to own one quality of the divine and allow it to inform your being. The divine is all that there is. It isn't manifest in time and space. It's limitless. So nowhere in this are we saying that you are God, but we are saying that you can access one thing about God and make it your own. What you can recognize and integrate, you can realize. And so that's the next piece. So can you feel how we're flowing? So we're going from the big idea of God, and we're saying, oh, it's actually me. And then we're saying, well, if it's me, what can I do? What's possible? How can I actually show up in the world if it is me? So it is the awareness of what's possible. It's a new spiritual understanding, right? That's grounded in spiritual truth that you get to inhabit, that you actually get to live as. This is our method of prayer, acknowledging our oneness with God, claiming the ability that this gives, and expecting to have the things needed and conducive to spiritual progress. that this is it in a nutshell. Right? Acknowledging our oneness with God and claiming the ability that that gives. That's what our 12 powers are. What abilities are available to you? And then we come to the final movement. So can you feel how it just keeps opening and opening and opening? And here we are. And what we appreciate is the shift in our own consciousness. Oftentimes, at the end of prayers, who do we thank? God, right? Thank you, God. Now, there's something wrong with saying thank you, God, right? Again, there's no prayer police here. Everyone, is there a prayer? Are there prayer police in this place? No. But what you want to pay attention to is when you're saying thank you, God, are you actually releasing your own sense of spiritual authority in that moment? Just listening for it, right? Because there's no right or wrong here. But Michael Beckwith says, thank you, God, all the time. But it's very clear when Michael says it that he's not talking about a place of separation. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So what it is you're appreciating is your shift in consciousness. The entire prayer comes together in this final movement as we express appreciation for a realization of truth. We are appreciating the shift in our own consciousness, the new understanding we just realized, and how we can incorporate it going forward. Because that is ultimately the point. Not to make us feel good and oh, look, everything's loving and I'm loving and the world is loving and so it is. But to say, I am the harmonizing power of love, which means that I can speak to people, even in the midst of anger, even in the midst of discord, I can speak from that place of love and harmony. In that moment, I can see the divinity that they are, and I am harmonizing with the truth of who I know we both are. Can you feel how much more powerful that is? How much more impactful that is in the world? So here's some examples of what this could sound like. I appreciate the shift in consciousness I have experienced. Done, right? I appreciate how I am now empowered to move through the world differently. I appreciate how I have been changed. I appreciate that I am realigned with my true nature and true name and can bring my divinity to every situation. That one was mine too. The wordier they are, the more likely they are they're mine. I own that. So can you feel how what we're appreciating isn't some power outside of us? What we're grateful for is that we are now able to move through the world in a different way. We are able to navigate the condition that we started with from a spiritual anchor, which means that we don't feel powerless, which means that we don't feel like a victim, which means that we don't feel sort of like we're being buffeted. It allows us to bring something, even to the most horrifying situations. Because we're here in time and space, folks. Life is going to do this, right? Life is going to be up and down, and it's part of what this time and space is. And we are evolving, we are shifting, we are growing within human race consciousness. But do we have a long way to go? We do. So how I hold this for myself is that it allows me to be, can you feel how this type of empowerment allows you to actually be fully present with what is so messed up in the world? I don't have to hide from it. I don't have to pretend that there isn't someone deeply suffering in this world right now. I can acknowledge it. I can be alive to it. And I get to listen to how I am called from my spiritual awareness to actually show up as those divine qualities for everyone who is suffering. So this isn't just about my own little world here. This is about how we are called to show up in the world the entire world. And I know that that can feel daunting. And I know that it can feel overwhelming. There are things that are happening in the news right now that I continually have to take a deep breath and say to myself, what is the truth in this moment? Even when this thing is just triggering me left, right, and center. Where my concern, my anger, just kind of like takes off. I have to say to myself, what is the truth here and what is mine to do? They're not separate. They're not separate. We can, but it doesn't move the world forward. The idea is that I say, what is the truth here? And then that gives me something to be in the world as a force and a place of transformation and change. Not expecting some magical entity to wave its fairy wand and make everything okay. I mean, how's that been working for us? So it's asking something of us. And I know that can feel overwhelming, like, oh, I like my life, I like where I am, I'm kind of comfortable. Do I really have to stir this all up? You don't have to do anything, really, right? You don't have to do anything. But you are here because you're a seeker. You're here because there's something within you that knows that there's more, that there's always more for you personally. And in the more for you personally, there is also more for the entire world to be able to experience. There's only one. So as I shift and grow in my consciousness, it shifts and grows everywhere, right? So that flow, and I want to leave you with Myrtle's, I love this quote from Myrtle, because I go back to this all the time. She says, if the light of understanding does not manifest as swiftly as you expect, do not be discouraged. The truths you plant are as seeds that are growing in the soil of your consciousness, and they are bound to bring forth their harvest so that your whole consciousness will be illumined, spiritualized, and transformed. So let's take all of this into our time of meditation. Just this opportunity to embrace the capacity to be illumined, to be revitalized. So we're just breathing into whatever might have gotten stirred up here. And I invite you in this moment to just ask yourself, what's on your heart that is asking to be transformed right now? What are you carrying that you just would like to have less concern, less worry, that you'd like to bring that spiritual antidote to it right here? So the invitation is to open the heart. Just be willing to not know, be willing to embrace a new understanding, a new way of being and moving through the world, anchored not in what you don't want, but in the truth of who you truly are. And as we breathe into that open-heartedness, as we breathe into that space, that place of possibility, the infinite potential that is our true nature and true name, I'm recognizing the one power and the one presence, the one life, the one love, the one joy, the one beauty. That is my life. That is the life of each person here. And I invite you in this moment to open into a divine quality. What would be useful to you right now? What is the spiritual antidote for whatever you're carrying in your being? And as we breathe into whatever that divine quality is, just allowing it to become you. Just taking the largeness of whatever the etherealness of that divine quality and allowing it to be nearer than your breath. The I am that you actually are means that you are that quality. I am. And you get to fill in the blank. God is. I am. And as you allow yourself to embrace the truth of who you are, of what is available to you through your divine birthright, what is possible? What can you do? What can you be? What do you know? Therefore, I can what? How are you going to show up in the world living this divine quality fully and powerfully? So let's just take a moment and rest here in the realization, just allowing that to grow within you, how you are called, what it is that is available to you now for a few moments in the silence. And as we breathe into the realization, we allow ourselves just appreciation and gratitude for a new understanding or a new way of being, and a gratitude and appreciation for our ability to now be in time and in space in a whole new way, grounded and rooted in the truth of who we actually are. I see and I know that we each have everything we need and more, and that in our yes, we are truly creating a world that works for everyone. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.